Hey everybody, welcome to the Our Memphis History Podcast. I'm Mark White, joined by co-host Joe Lowry here you'll hear from here in a minute. We've got a great episode for you today with some special guests. I'm sure you're going to enjoy hearing from them. I'm often asked why a podcast on Memphis history. Well, that's an easy question for me, actually. This podcast was created to chronicle and record our city's history while speaking to the people who either witnessed that history or were a part of it. I think it would be a real tragedy if this history was lost because the people weren't around any longer, the knowledge or experience wasn't here, they weren't here to talk about that, and just also to remind us of where we've been, how to keep the record straight. And this episode is really no different, and we'll continue that goal. Today we're going to talk about one of Memphis's longest standing institutions, Christian Brothers High School. Our very special guest is Brother Joel, who we're going to hear more about here in just a moment. We'll also speak with alumni and relive the history of Christian Brothers in Memphis. Our group tonight consists of several wonderful people who've come together to reminisce and talk about their experiences and more. Joe and I are pleased to welcome back to the podcast John Robilio. Along with John being a regular on this podcast, he's also a proud alumni and past teacher at CBHS, where after graduating he taught Spanish, current events, and world culture from 1968 to 1972. We're also joined by Germantown Fire Marshal Jody Dwyer. Jody's been employed with the Germantown Fire Department since 1996 and has served in the capacity of Fire Marshal since 2008. He also serves on the Public Safety Commission, the Technical Advisory Committee, and has held a position of both President and Vice President of the Shelby County Metro Fire Marshals Association. Chief Dwyer is also an adjunct instructor and course developer for the Fire Science Program at Southwest Tennessee Community College. We also have Larry Savetti on the show. Larry's a lifelong Memphian and a 1982 graduate of Christian Brothers. Larry has more than 25 years of investment banking experience and now owns and runs Matei's Garage. We'll also be joined later by our own Trish McGillen Gully and a friend of the show, Jason Terrell. So let's get started as John introduces our friend, Brother Joel.
Mark, thank you very much. What an honor. What a distinct honor. Tonight we have as our principal guest, Brother Joel McGraw. Brother Joel graduated from Christian Brothers in 1963. We were classmates. We took Spanish together and we learned a lot together. Brother Joel has been a Christian brother over 50 years. He has written books about the Catholic Diocese of Memphis. He has been teaching in the area, the neighborhood of 50 years. He is the former assistant principal of Christian Brothers High School, and currently he serves as the archivist and the special administrative assistant to Brother Chris, who is the president of Christian Brothers High School. I could, if I wanted, Mark, I could spend another 5 or 10 minutes just considering his achievements, but I will not. Brother Joel, we are so happy to have you here tonight, and we would be very grateful if you could initiate this conversation with some words about your founder, St. John Baptist de La Salle.
Thank you, John. De La Salle was a priest in the 1600s, 1651 to 1719 in France. Wealthy family, had responsibilities for taking care of his family after the deaths of his parents. He was what we call a canon. It was kind of a high-level priest that served the cathedral. And his life was pretty much elevated economically and not too difficult. He chanted the office at the cathedral, said Mass, taught religion. A priest, spiritual director of him, Father Nicholas Roland, was the chaplain of a group of sisters who had schools for poor girls in Reims, France. And Roland died and left all that responsibility to De La Salle. A chance happening, a man named Adrien Niel was visiting at the convent, wanted to start schools for poor boys. There were no public schools in France at that time. You either were tutored or you remained illiterate. And their chance meeting, De La Salle listened to him. He would like to form these schools, and then he asked De La Salle to help him. Years later, De La Salle, had I known what I was getting into, I would have never done this. It was so difficult. But The long and short of it is they collected a group of men. De La Salle said that those men he considered below his valet socially. But they became eventually the first teachers in what they call the Christian schools. And then he saw them form into religious life. As you have sisters, he formed into brothers. You were not to be priests, you were not to be fathers, you were not masters, you were brothers. That was a relationship of these men to the people they taught, and also to the in community where they lived, that was their relationship. He stressed fraternal love. Of the 10 kinds of love, he stressed fraternal love. And he called them the brothers of the Christian schools. They first lived in his own house, but his family was so scandalized by these low-class people, they eventually moved into another house that De La Salle rented. And they would put a sign over these buildings, Christian schools. It was boys only. And they were what we would call elementary schools. And roughly about 1680 was the time when these schools started, and they were going throughout France. Then came the French Revolution, and we were almost totally destroyed. And brothers left France and started going to other countries. And that is the time around when those brothers started coming to the United States, 1830s, 1840s. They were asked to come over here. First establishment was in St. Genevieve, Missouri. It did not make it, but it was the first one. The first permanent establishment was at Calvert Hall in Baltimore. And then we came up the Mississippi River, basically. And at the time of the death of the founder in 1651, there were about 100 brothers. And our official title today is Brothers of the Christian Schools. And we were not to be priests. He was going to ordain one of the brothers a priest to serve as a chaplain. A couple of weeks before the man was ordained, the man died, and the founder took that as a sign of providence. There will be no priests in the Institute. And every time it has come up in general chapters, it's voted down because they wanted to keep the vocation strictly. We are a lay institute. We don't take holy orders. We don't celebrate the sacraments. We don't even wear the surplice. But we are lay persons who take what we call simple vows: poverty, chastity, obedience, stability, and teaching the poor gratuitously. And that was the beginning of the Institute. The numbers have swelled to about 16,000.
Wow.
And today, when I entered, it was 16,000. Today, about 5,000. I'm not sure what I've done to the Institute, but the Vatican Council came along, and values and things have shifted. We have 5 novices in our district. We've got some young brothers, so I feel we have a little bit of life coming back in us. But the Institute is still, our fundamental thing is education. Starting in the 70s, we were allowed to teach women. Non-Catholics took something called ethics. And to this day, we're the only school that I know of, Catholic school, that will offer a more religiously neutral course to persons who are not Catholic. Catholics here have to take religion, but non-Catholics, they may take religion if they want. But for the first time for the past 2 years, I've taught senior ethics, and it's been an education to me because I had to remove the rosary, the Sunday liturgy, the sacraments, the lives of the saints. I had to remove that from my curriculum and create a course that did not step on the toes of our Jewish students. We have 28 in the school this year, and we're not in the business of offending people. We don't want to proselytize anybody. We're professedly Catholic, but at the same time, we want to respect that element. Mayor Watkins Overton, I think was his name, he called us the Temple of Tolerance because he was aware that we would admit persons of all religions and made no effort to bring them into the church or something. If they were interested, that was fine. But I think that ecumenical element is important. We're all in this together. I feel it's like going to East Memphis. Some people take Poplar. Some people take Union. Some people get over to Park Avenue. Some people even take Summer Avenue. And And we're all going in the same direction, and we take different routes, and that's the stance of the school towards people of all faiths. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, I think that we are certainly privileged tonight that we have a parent of a graduate of Christian Brothers. Trish, I think I'm going to go ahead and give the microphone to you, and because obviously you have a very recent and vivid memory of Christian Brothers.
Yes, I do, from a parent perspective. Please, Brother Joel, tell this parent what combination, formula, incentives, or processes the brothers and lay staff use to develop an energetic, unfocused, under-disciplined boy into a goal-oriented, competitive, conscientious, community-oriented, faithful young man.
There's a loaded question.
I think the fact that it's boys only, that's not always been a popular to think of as, but I think the fact when a boy comes here, he can be himself. When a girl goes to IC or to St. Agnes or St. Mary's, they don't have to compete. They can be, a boy here can be in art, can be in music, can be math or something. Who cares? There's no element where only girls do this or only boys do that. I think that's number one, is they can be themselves. And again, we stress that fraternal love. These boys are close to one another. I see it day in and day out. They love one. They enjoy one another's company. Graduation here, I've seen 44 of them now. I'll see my 45th one.
Wow.
And it's a bittersweet day. They're happy, but at the same time, they keep lingering in that gym afterwards, taking off that graduation stuff. They don't want to leave. One boy told me, well, how you doing? He says, I'm not happy. I'm getting ready to lose my friends.
Oh.
And one man, after Mass one morning at St. Louis, Deacon Lyons, his boy just graduated. How's he doing? Is he happy? My boy is miserable. I said, what's wrong? He said, he misses his school. And that boy was no shrinking violet. And so that's, I think, number one, if they can be together with one themselves. I don't think it stunts them socially. They can still dance and go and meet girls and things like that, but they enjoy it. Number two, people like me, when I was here, they always said McGraw or Robilio. They didn't call us up, but I've learned, I call him Mr. Put that Mr. in front of Fred, pumps him up a little bit.
Yes, it does.
He's no longer a boy. He's coming up.
Sure.
Call him Mr. Are you ever going to call us by our first name after you graduate? But make him feel like he is important, significant. Number three, the whole emphasis of paying attention to them. A lot of people don't like teenage boys. I mean, they can be miserable people. But at the same time, if you greet them in class, they're shaking their hands all day long when they go into class, when they leave, let them know they're important, they're significant. They're not better than other people, but I think that is one
If they
thing.
have significance.
And then, for example, the classes that I teach, daily quiz, constantly. Give them constant work. Don't say, well, you really can't do that. You can't take Hamlet. We'll give you Hello Dolly or something like that. We're not that way. I think that's a good thing. To let them know that they're valued. That, if anything, in my 50 years of teaching as of this year, if you let him know that you value him and that he's important to you, that changes a boy.
Yeah, I'm sure
I think that changes them because they come from ruptured families. Some of them are together families. Some of them are, there's religion in some of them. There's no religion. It's a mixture. 55% of the school today is Roman Catholic. 45% of the school is not Catholic. Jewish, Protestant, non-believers, Asian religion, whatever. We have a mixture here. But I like to see them get along with one another. And that if you can raise a boy's self-esteem, he's going to be better than he is. And I have one last example. I have a freshman. I love him to death. He's a great kid, but his mother says, oh, brother, you don't live with him. He gets home and he turns. He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So I have been shifting religion a little bit constantly. We talked about schizoid behavior the other day. One way here, one way other. Find a top, go after him. And so every time I see him, I move my hands, or which way are we? Oh, I'm being good, I'm being good. Let him know that you're paying attention to him. That changes a boy, I think.
Right. That's incredibly wise words right there.
Well, this parent, the single parent, is indebted to the Christian brothers and lay teachers and coaches for the positive impact they've had on my son, as well as many other students that have progressed through the 4 years here. It's these young men educated in the Lasallian tradition who are making a difference in our community today and across many other cities, and we're all benefiting from it. Watching a son learn the impact, working alongside his brothers, doing missions collections, giving blood, volunteering with the seniors at Ave Maria. Just the experiences they had. My son, the fun of performing in the band, playing trumpet, games, participating in fundraising events, even a short stint in football. But it brought more athletic experiences and relationships with the coaching. He soaked it up like a sponge. His next endeavor was with the wrestling team. By this time, he was meeting the coach at 5:30 a.m. and working out before class. I don't know if you remember that or not, Brother Joel, but I had you come over and check on him. I wasn't too sure what my son was doing here at 5:30 in the morning. I really didn't know what had gotten into him. But this is where he developed his goals, fitness and nutrition, goal setting, and it's become a lifestyle. He's now in his senior year at Christian Brothers University, a finance major, working at the Kroc Center, teaching fitness classes, getting his personal training certificate in his spare time. I think it speaks volumes that he wanted to continue his Lasallian education at CBU. It's just such a testimony to the brothers here. What stuck out with me was it improves the lives of those in need through service. And Daniel has learned that despite adversity, he's confident. He has gained the tools here to achieve whatever his heart desires. A parent really appreciates this. It can't be underestimated, the education he's received here at Christian Brothers.
Thank you, Trish. Trish has really made a very good point about the importance of service to the community. That is emphasized by the Christian Brothers, talking about service to the community and also talking about diversity. We have here tonight Chief Dwyer and we have Larry Cervetti, and they obviously they reflect diversity. Chief Dwyer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, John. Jody Dwyer, Fire Marshal with the City of Germantown. I've been with the Germantown Fire Department for 21 years now. And Brother Joe's right. It's the friendships you forge here at Christian Brothers last a lifetime. And that's so prevalent today. We have civic leaders, community leaders, business owners that we continue to meet and deal with every day. And the values that they have, the values that we gain from this school, last us a lifetime. And there's no replacing that. Today, when you go in somewhere and you tell them that you were at Christian Brothers High School or that you graduated from Christian Brothers High School, you're treated different from that point on. And it's because of the education and the values that you receive here.
Thank you, Chief. Larry, do you have some comments about the experience of being educated at CBHS?
Gosh, I could talk for hours about that. I'm Larry Cervetti. I'm an entrepreneur here. I have a mechanic shop in town, and I'll just kind of follow on with what Chief Dwyer said. Something that has struck me, having been at the shop for the last 7 years, is that there's a lot of people that come in, and I've got my alumni sticker on the wall, and when they see that, it changes the way they view not only me, but the business, because of it reflects certain values about who I am, but more importantly, who we are as a company. And we're a very small business, but we're growing, and I think a lot of it's because of those values that you learn here at CBHS, and you carry those on through the rest of your life even kids that are people, I call them kids that I didn't go to school with, they weren't in my class, they may have been, you know, a recent graduate or maybe in the class of 1940, whatever. They come in and they see that sticker, and that tells them exactly who I am, but more importantly, what we are. And you can't put a value on it. You can't put a dollar value on that.
Thank you, Larry. Joe, you're a graduate of Overton High School. My wife is a graduate of Overton. What's your perception of CBHS?
I have a bunch of friends that graduated from here, and when they started coming here, they were one way, and when they graduated, they were well grounded. And when they started here, they were not. And the school speaks for itself. I've probably got 150 friends or acquaintances, both business and personal, that all came here. And how many guys on the fire department? As y'all know, I'm retired from Germantown Fire. How many guys from the fire department? 5 or 6?
We have 6 now. 6
Six,
active,
yeah. And everywhere I go, when we talk about where you went to school and they say Christian Brothers, that's a whole different.
Mark, I think when you inform someone you're a graduate of CBHS, they automatically have a very proper image in their minds. That individual is disciplined, and that individual is mature. Would you like to talk about the teaching methods of the brothers and the values that they have inculcated in their students over the years?
When I was a boy, it was if you don't straighten up, I'm going to send you to the brothers. So there were, and there was more physical discipline. They were, it was a rougher place. I think there was still the basic brothers approach, but it was a rougher school. The boys came from rougher backgrounds. But when I was here, there was a certain amount of physical discipline, not too much, but you just didn't mess around. I never felt, now I was never a troublemaker, I never felt intimidated at all in the school, but I would see what teachers did to people who didn't have homework or something, so I did my homework. What has changed I think now when Brother Chris, our president or something, when he took over the school and asked me to become his assistant in 1990, he came right out. There will be no corporal punishment in this school. If you want to work here, if you will not work here if there's corporal punishment. And we've had 2 or 3 cases where they practiced it and they were gone. It changed the school, and I think in a good way, because I remember Brother Joachim Stephen O'Malley, who was the principal when I was here. He controlled this school with his eyes. He did not yell. He did not create any kind of. He just controlled with eyes, and as a teacher, he controlled it with hard work. Do the first 200, and that taught me a lot. And as a younger brother, I've made all the mistakes as a teacher, yelling and popping somebody. I don't do that anymore. Of course, at my age now, yelling causes high blood pressure problems. And I see little flecks coming from the ceiling, which is not Tinkerbell, but it's high blood pressure. Right. But I have learned, finally, kindness, hard work, consistency, paying attention to them, esteeming the boys. That wins the day. They know, and perseverance. Regardless of what you're not going to stop. You're going to be back there tomorrow. All of us who are teachers have been called everything under the sun. We've been insulted. Sometimes you think, why am I doing this? But you get over it. You stay with it. You did it in the fire department. You said, well, this is a tough assignment. I'm going in. And they see that. They see that you are going to be there regardless. And boys need that. Mm-hmm. They need to see that you're going to be the same one day. You're not going to be fickle. Fickleness on the part of a teacher is a terrible problem. But when they know you're going to be the same one day after the other, it gives them security. And we know the world in which we live, there is less security than there was when I was a boy, when you were a boy. Right. There's much less security. If we can give them the security when they come here, put them in a good band, Put them on a good athletic team. On the plays, in the stage, put them in the chorus, put them in the robotics club. Go after that stuff. We issue, out of 886 students this year, we issue 600 uniforms a year. A lot of boys are playing a lot of sports. There are many more sports now than there were when we were here. There was
I agree.
It was
I
a
agree.
very simple situation. That gives them more opportunities. A busy boy he's gonna have less time for the video games, which are proven enemies of education, and psychological balance. He has less time because he's busy. Overton School, the arts, that gives people an outlet that when you finish a hard recital, you're a better boy, you're a better man because you've accomplished something. That I think is the way I have survived in the classroom, not meanness, not punishments. De La Salle said, don't give punishments, give corrections. Give a little penance. Don't punish people. Give them a correction. And I give corrections and little penances. You don't need much more than that most of the time. Keep them so busy they don't have time
Backed up.
to. My seniors this morning, first period or something, you come in, they're like a bunch of girls. They gossip. That bell rang at 8 o'clock. We went to work, and we worked the full class period. There was no break. Now some of them are cheating and looking and talking or something. We kept going at it. That was a happy class, and it went like lightning.
Brother Joel, I am very indebted to the Christian Brothers. I graduated in May of 1964, and I believe you graduated 1 year before. Yeah, you graduated in 1963. But the values that I did learn at Christian Brothers, they were of incalculable value to me when I was in undergraduate school, and then with the help of God and the Christian Brothers, I acquired a master's degree in December of 1971. And I, again, am indebted to the brothers because they instilled in me discipline, consistency, learning how to study, above all, learning direction and discipline in your academic work. I'm still indebted to the Christian Brothers.
John, you came back and taught after that, right?
I taught at Christian Brothers from 1968 to 1972, and what Brother Joel has declared back then. This is, of course, before the arrival of Brother Chris, but Brother Stephen was, of course, our principal. We had Brother Adrian as our director, and they were very fair administrators. And as Brother Joel has commented, they believed in homework, they believed in discipline. They were not cruel men, but I think our students very quickly learned that if you did not study and if you contested the authority of the brothers or lay teachers, there were immediate and serious consequences. I think Chief Dwyer and Larry can address those serious and significant consequences.
Well,
Were you all recipients of the
no,
serious
I
consequences?
think maybe it was you, brother, who mentioned, I learned really quickly when the guy sitting next to me did something he shouldn't have done, or I like the way you put it, challenge the authority. There was swift reprimand and strong reprimand, not always corporal reprimand, but it was reprimand. And I learned I didn't want that to happen to me. And so it was kind of like, I was here for Career Day a couple of years ago. We were out in the courtyard waiting for, I think we were waiting on you, brother, to take a picture. And the bell rang. And at that point, everybody was talking. When that bell rang, it was kind of like everybody stood at attention because it was time to go, and we didn't want to get yelled at. We had gone through that or corrected or get the penance, as you put it. I like that very much so. So I don't think that I ever got to the point where I got in trouble per se, but I watched others and I learned real quick. I think that's the best way I can put it.
There are no feared teachers here anymore. There are no fear. No one is afraid of any. And yet there's order, because if you are in the halls or teachers and the boys, there's a lot of camaraderie. That has replaced fear. I don't think the fear element would work any longer. That does not work. Not in this 21st century.
Yeah, I agree.
It does not work. Fraternity, hard work, getting along, speaking to one another, talking, all the kindness, winning. The boys love competitions. We have an advisory system now that we keep the same homeroom all 4 years. And I have now their second group. I love them to death. I spoil them, but we are a group, and I'm going to keep them for 4 years. That changes the spirit, and they have competitions. They have these trivia things every once in a while or something. They're screaming and yelling, blah, blah, blah. That's good. Absolute silence, rigored. I don't know whether that would work as well. They might not stay. We want it so. I read a quotation: a school should be such that its worst punishment is to deny a person permission to come there. That should be the worst punishment, is that he's not allowed to come. And I think they feel that way. We ended spring break, which you and I did not have. There was no spring break or fall break. We ended it. It came back Monday. They moaned, but they were happy to get back.
Yeah.
They were happy to
They were
get
looking
back.
forward to it.
Then you knew that you had a good school. When the seniors are kind of unhappy because they're getting ready to leave, then you know you've succeeded. If they say, well, I can't wait to get out of this hellhole, then you know this has not worked. So, and we have to work hard at it. When you and I were here in 69, Lausanne was only girls. MUS was a 2A school, they had reopened after 1955. They'd been closed. We didn't play them. Briarcrest did not exist. St. George did not exist. St. Benedict did not exist. All 5 of those right now are major schools, major competitors for our students. We cannot sit on our laurels. People will not come to us. We have to work very hard, which is good.
Sure.
I want a strong public school system. I don't want a weak public school system, because then we get weak. Was it isometrics? Is that a type of exercise where you press against?
Yes.
That makes you stronger because you're pressing. We need that in this school so that we can get better. We just finished the first class graduated, had never had textbooks. It was all laptops, and we've gone through that. I've been very concerned about it. We had a number of early retirements because people were not willing to start a new system. By the grace of God and by the boys helping me, I was able to get into that teaching without a textbook. I was concerned, are we going to go down? We did a statistical study, though. The last group that had no laptops, and then the group that had nothing but laptops, ACT scores were statistically the same. So at least we didn't go down. But I keep asking, are we doing the right thing? Are we going in the right direction? And they'll tell me, oh, yeah, college people, brother, we could not make it in the older system, because we have leaders, Brother Chris and Chris Fay, who push us in that. We have to change. We cannot be the same. And yet, there's still, the boys come back. I call them boys, and a lot of them are grandparents now. But they come back. The fundamentals are still there. The fraternity, the faith in God. Let us remember that we're in the presence of God. Every class period, all throughout the hall, you hear it. Let us remember that we're in the holy presence of God. Because De La Salle pushed. If you could remember that you're in God's presence, you're already in heaven. Heaven is not a place, it's a state of being. And when you remember the presence of God, in a sense, we're experiencing a little bit of heaven right here. That keeps the school going. It makes it a significant contribution to the city. The mayor of the city is from here. 2 of the council members are from here. 3 judges are from here. Persons in all the professions. Once in a while, a transcript is sent to the Shelby County Penal Farm, but not too often.
Both sides of the story there.
But all the professions. And we will have in April the priests who are from this school. April the 6th, we will have the Mass of the Founder. All of our young men in profession and the brothers are from the United States are coming here to be with us that day. And they will see the boys who have graduated who are priests in our diocese, Monsignor Handworker, Father MacArthur, they will see that we give persons to the religious life too. That's the purpose of a school, is to give life to the community and beyond.
Brother Joel, Joe and Mark have asked me, they've heard so many times, and I think many of our listeners have probably heard numerous times, a brother's boy, the ideal brother's boy. Would you like to talk about, that's an identification that many Memphians have associated with Christian brothers.
Sometimes don't call me boy. You've heard that expression, because that's a pejorative sense.
Sure.
But there's something about they're brother's boy. They want to be known as brother's boys, because not that they're little children, but it's that fraternal love. They enjoy one another's company. I watch them when they come back from the reunions. They will have been away for years and years. They come back, and within minutes, they're right. You see that. Then you know there's that fraternal union.
Yeah.
The founder, in his last meditation for a time of retreat for the brothers, talks about the joy of a brother of the Christian schools in heaven will be with a number of his former students who will rejoice that he led them as if by the hand to heaven. And that's that whole fraternity. I keep emphasizing it day in and day out. Your brother, that's your brothers. Brother Chris tells the freshmen, you stay close to your class. Brother Chris is a good, roly-poly, nice guy. You want him to turn on you, make fun of one of your classmates or ridicule him, and he turns. He is like milk that sours, and you cannot unsour it, because he lets them know, these are your people. This is your group. Stay close to them. That's the beauty of life. You were talking about, Mr. Lowry, about the friends that you have. That's the joy of life, is that togetherness with people. It's awful when you don't have that. It's awful.
They've all been successful. Every person I've ever known that went to school here has been successful. A bunch of them in the fire service.
And a sense of camaraderie, because Judge Dwyer and you had a successful career in the fire department, but I've noticed with firefighters and policemen and members of the military, there is an enduring sense of camaraderie, as Brother has remarked, and that's a spirit that is inculcated at CBHS. We're all together. We are all brothers, or quite frankly, band of brothers. I mean, you have common interests, common challenges.
Jody, one of our cousins, Tim Dwyer, he's General Sessions criminal court judge, but I think as a sideline, he has become, they funnel all the drug cases to him, and he does them in the afternoon. It's really taken over his life. But he's an example. He spends most of his day with the poorest of the poor, the outcasts, the people that no one likes. We are so intensely proud of him that he is giving his life to the ones that are rejected in other corners. That has been so wonderful. The two boys on the city council or something, a lot of times they're working with the people who have no advantages, who come down there trying to get help. They're trying to help the poor. The mayor does it. A lot of his day is dealing with the poor, trying to get them some kind of help, fix up their neighborhood. That's what the judges, the attorney, when they're working, because our founder kept saying, who is that poor person? Mother Teresa says it. Who is that poor person? That's Jesus Christ in the distressing disguise of the poor. A lot of times I say a teenager is Jesus Christ in the distressing disguise of a teenage boy. But that's who they are, and we have to love them. When you realize that there's no difference, you don't, and we have to fight that. We change seats a lot because I start tending to have favorites. I move them to the back of the room, and I put the ones I don't like close to me so that I will get to like them. That's important. We're human beings as teachers, and again, esteem them. Make them feel. There's a boy after school. He says no words. I am spending now his second year. I shake his hand every time I see him, and now he's not talking, but he's putting his hand out. Now that's taken a year and a half to get that far. I will keep working because who is that boy? That's Jesus Christ. I have to take care of him. Deep down, maybe we're trying to make a little difference. That's the important thing. In 50 years of teaching, that's what I have learned. It's those little things. It's not the big moments. It's that one who's kind of sitting off to the side. Go after him.
I want
Brother
to
Joel,
point out
oh,
that
excuse me.
everybody around the table that's been here is smiling right now at all of those conversations and thinking that that happened to you when you were here. That's a great testament to the history of Christian Brothers.
Mark,
John?
As Brother Joel, because he is the archivist for Christian Brothers, he informed me several weeks ago that our listeners are very familiar with Memphis in the 1870s. The brothers established CBC in 1871, and regrettably, that's the very decade, Joe, that there are severe yellow fever epidemics. Brother, would you talk to us about the Christian Brothers and the yellow fever epidemics?
There was a smaller epidemic in 1864 or something.
We had three of them over a different period of
And
time.
then we came in 1871, and then they hit 1873, 1875, 1878. The Dominican sisters remained in the city. They lost at least 50 of their members. The Franciscans remained in the city. A number of priests died. When I was a boy, I would ride the bus with Mother, and nuns would get on the bus, and they wouldn't pay anything in the box. And I'd say, why didn't they put anything in that box? They helped during yellow fever. Be quiet. But that was a gift of the city because the religious had stayed in the city. The brothers, there was a refugee camp at the location of the old Baronhurst Synagogue in Valentine and
We built
Evergreen.
Evergreen.
It was called Camp Father Matthew. He was an Irish priest who, I was told in Ireland, he had the worst job in the history of Ireland. He tried to get us to stop drinking. But to get into Camp Father Matthew, you had to be a teacher. You could not drink. The brothers ran the camp they kept the books and ledgers, etc. We only lost one Christian brother to yellow fever, Brother Hosea of Mary, but the Dominicans stayed in the city and nursed the sick, and then they were, and orders knew if you were assigned to Memphis, it was a death sentence, and people came. Brother Marillion and Rabbi Max Samfeld, it was called in those days Children of Israel Temple, but now it's called Temple of Israel. Max Samfeld, Brother Marillion, and a few others appealed to the government to get sanitation, because it was open sewers, wasn't it, in those days?
Yes.
Raw
Yes.
sewage ran, and this was part of the cause of the epidemic. He worked with these people to get a closed sewer system in the city. Little things like that. Brother Marillion made it through those three epidemics. He had a little bit of it when he was in Pass Christian, Mississippi, where our college was there. And it closed because of yellow fever. But he came up here and then had to go right through three epidemics. So the fact that we could make it through those, because didn't the city lose its charter during that time? We
It
lost
did,
it.
and what was interesting is, just before we got the charter back, when they were under law outside of our law, state law was actually basically running everything. In 1879, they put in a sewer system and sent all the sewage to Nonconnah Creek. And it continued to run in Nonconnah Creek until they built the south treatment plant, and all of our sewage eventually went to the north treatment plant when they built that. But before that, even in the 50s, we were still dumping sewage in the Nonconnah Creek, and it was heading down to New Orleans.
But yellow fever changed the city. We used to have Irish parish with St. Bridget, in what is called a pinch, right? If you go into St. Jude today, the place where they check your driver's license, that was the location of St. Bridget. That was the Irish parish. St. Mary's was the German. St. Patrick's was another Irish, the wealthier Irish. St. Joseph's was the Italian. Well, yellow fever, and St. Peter's was mostly German, but after the epidemic, they were so wiped out, that whole concept of ethnic neighborhoods was gone permanently from this city. I always think Orange Mound today is the last neighborhood type of place we have in the city, where the school, it's a neighbor. We really don't have neighborhoods other than Orange Mound today. We lost all of our regular neighborhoods, yellow fever. It was a major change in the history of this city.
Mark, my mother, of course, informed me, as Brother Joel has remarked, we had, before the yellow fever epidemics, a very prosperous German community, because I know in part you are of German ancestry.
Oh, yeah.
But during the yellow fever epidemics, obviously many of them died, and those that survived moved to St. Louis, moved to Chicago, because many of them were affluent, and they simply could not take the very unhealthy conditions that existed in Memphis, so they moved to the north. Brother Joel, you're very correct. We had a prosperous German community, but significantly diminished during the yellow fever epidemics, particularly, Joel, of 1878, which apparently that was the most severe of all the epidemics.
We also had in this school, we're in the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King in Memphis. And I was a young brother coming home for retreat at that time, and I remember coming in on those days it was Panama Limited, the morning, come in, and the soldiers were bivouacked along at Poplar Street Station, used to be Poplar Street Station. That whole era was different. Our school was the first of the high schools in Memphis to integrate. Squire Jesse Turner was one of the NAACP magnates, and his son, when they had gerrymandered the parish boundaries at IC to keep black people out of the parish, and so they would go along Parkway. They lived in South Memphis to go to Blessed Sacrament Parish. And little Jesse Turner said, I want to go to that school. And his mother thought, is this going to happen? Well, Mr. Turner, they turned in an application to Brother Terrence, and he accepted it. He thought, well, I better let Bishop Adrian know about this. This is a little different. And so he let Bishop Adrian know, and Bishop Adrian said, that is not our plan. We're going to integrate one grade at a time. You have to rescind that. So we had to send back the registration to the Turners. And the long and short of it, Mr. Turner said, we will sue Christian Brothers High School. You had a contract with us, and we'll also sue the Diocese of Nashville because of discrimination. Bishop Adrian got wind of that through Brother Terrence, he said. And so Bishop Adrian said, well, you may admit him. Do not call the media. Just do it. Mm-hmm. So in August of '63, right after I had left, you were a senior.
I was a senior.
And
I remember that year vividly.
So he was admitted, and he had the usual problem, but that was a significant moment in the city. The grades had been integrated. Memphis State had been integrated. The college had been integrated, but not the high schools. So we began that process. And that was difficult on Brother Terrence. He didn't get too much opposition, but Jesse Turner suffered a lot here. He suffered a lot. But then when he graduated, National Honor Society, co-editor of the yearbook, head of the Legion of Mary, he did not allow that opposition and we still work today. In this school, we have, I think, about 67 African Americans, probably an equal number of Hispanic students, a number of Asians or something. The racial balance in the school is a little bit better. We still have a long way to go. The demise of the Jubilee schools is a terrible loss to us personally, because we have a number of their graduates. We have to pay a significant amount of their tuition through our endowment. But a healthy school is, I think, a mixed school because I watch these, I'll see boys with arms around one, black and white, with their arms around one another. They will double date. Those barriers the boys are ahead of the adults on this subject. I see that. We will have no fewer than 25 biracial couples at a dance. 20 years ago, that would not have existed. But the fact that we're growing up, we're getting better, and it's the young people that are helping us on this. We have a long, long way to go on this, in this school and all, but we work at it. It's another issue that we have to address, because again, we're brothers. We are not separate people. That expression, those people, eventually we need to get rid of that expression. And I think we're making little baby steps at it.
Brother Joel, in 1957, my brother Victor Robilio Jr. graduated. I think that was the year that Tim McCarver graduated too.
59.
Pardon me, 59. Would you tell us about the exceptional reputation of Christian Brothers in athletics? I guess, where do you begin? You've had, I think Sean McKeel graduated from CBHS, Tim McCarver, Mike Fracchia, numerous professional baseball players. Would you tell us about athletics at CBHS?
Well, it's boys. Boys like to compete. Well, that's that may be a sexist statement, Mrs. Gully, but still, they like to compete. Anytime they can, I watch them at lunchtime. If they have a hacky sack or if they have anything, they'll wad up a piece of paper and start kicking it around. They will, and that's good for them. And so we've been blessed. We don't win everything. But we have good seasons. We have good seasons and try to get as many people participating as we can. Since you and I, John and Joey, were here, we have soccer. We did not have soccer. We did not have wrestling. We did not have water polo. We did not have lacrosse. We did not have trap shooting. Just to name a few of the things that have been added. Now, the athletic program's a lot more expensive, but I think it's the same way with the band. We have the oldest high school band in the United States. Wow. And now, when we were here under Ralph Hale, it was a smaller band because it was God Country Band, maybe family, but there were not many exceptions. And I remember at my own sister's graduation, I said, Mr. Hale, I can't come to graduation. I can't play for it. My sister's graduating from Sacred Heart. Well, put your horn up on that shelf. I said, what? He said, we're a service organization. You either serve or you leave. Well, I missed Ann's graduation. But Patrick Bolton, who's our current director, he's brought that band up to a total maybe of about 90 boys in the program. And they're making wonderful music. It's not a high school sound. You listen to it, it's a university sound. Let them do that. They're proud of that. If you can do something that you're proud of, and a lot of them, he starts from nothing. I go by that with that beginning band stuff. It's torture to go by that room. Absolute torture I'm sure at Overton, when they get these beginners, they have to listen to it. But it's another way of getting people involved. They enjoy school then.
Yeah, sure. Well, speaking of Christian Brothers boys, we've got another one here, Jason Terrell, who's been taking photos as we've been doing this podcast tonight. And so I think you've got some memories to share too.
Probably more than we want to hear on this podcast. All of them good. Chief Dwyer and I were in the same religion class with Brother Joel. I heard somebody mention earlier a lot of the friends that they had came from here. I was counting as I was listening to that, and I think of the handful of men that I can count as solid friends, 4 out of 5 of them came from my association here as a student at Christian Brothers. So that tells you how long we remained friends. And it's, to a person, it's amusing, even out in the parking lot before this podcast, when someone said, "You might know Chief Dwyer. I think he was in your class." He walked around the corner, and we instantly said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And as I walk around Memphis, I see people, and I say, "Yeah, he was in my class." Some cases, I'll even remember what class I had with them. You may not know the name. You may look at each other and do the exchange, but you know where it came, you know where it was. You know where it was that you met that person. And I think Brother Joel is absolutely correct. The key word was always fair. Maybe we had a different idea of what fair was, but I think at the end of the day, I don't ever recall anybody saying that things were unfair. The brothers went to, and all the teachers went to incredible lengths to try to be fair and just with everybody. And I always felt like if you thought it was unjust, you obviously weren't, as a student, you obviously weren't looking at it correctly. But yeah, you can't put a price on that at all. The kind of self-esteem, the kind of discipline, the kind of preparation you got as a student here at Christian Brothers. There's no price for it. And I know when I came here as a sophomore, and my first year was at a Jesuit high school in the Pacific Northwest, which when I came, I understood was somebody, may have been Brother Adrian, looked at my transcript and said, "You're from a Jesuit high school." And I said, "Yes, brother." And he said, "Well, I guess we'll take you anyway," or words to that effect. But after that, there was never a moment where I wasn't a brother's boy. There was never a moment when I wasn't part of the camaraderie. And those memories stick with you for a lifetime.
I'm still proud to say it.
Still proud to say it. Absolutely.
So am I. So am I.
Absolutely.
Bishop Fian, the early bishop that invited us to Memphis, did not permit the Jesuits in Tennessee because they're not known for obedience to the local ordinary.
Jason snuck through over here.
I did.
We have one graduate, Father Walsh, John Walsh, was a Jesuit, died about 15 or so years ago. He's the only graduate of this school. And we have one graduate right now who is in the Jesuit Scholasticate. So those are the only two that I have known from this school, because it's a different breed of cats. And they're wonderful educators. Jesuit trained is a very special term. They've done a great service to the world. Sometimes we have a little competition with them.
I've heard.
Brother Joel, of course, we've talked primarily tonight about Christian Brothers High School, but there are a good number of colleges and universities in our country that obviously have been founded by your order, and that have, I think of one in particular, St. Mary's in California. Could you talk briefly about the Christian Brothers and colleges and universities that they founded?
We have St. Mary's in California. We have St. Mary's in Winona, Minnesota. We have LaSalle University in Philadelphia. We have Manhattan College it used to be Manhattan, now they're in the Bronx. We have Lewis University in Romeoville, near Joliet, Illinois, and then we have Christian Brothers University here. So, and those schools, it's the typical plight of the small Catholic college. We have to work very hard. Here in Memphis, we're sandwiched between Rhodes on one side of the spectrum and the University of Memphis on the other, and Lemoyne. But by some miracle this year, the freshman class at CBU is the largest freshman class they've ever had. And that's been but we have to work hard and try to, again, the universities, we try to keep them open to people who want to go. That is, the term exclusive college is not really, the founder would not want that applied to any of our institutions. And I always have to remember that. They accepted me here in August of 1959 when I came. I always remember that. I want to be sure not to get too exclusive because they admitted me. University of Memphis or Memphis State and those admitted me in 63 with my 19 on the ACT. It was a brand new test, and I thought, ooh, maybe I can get it now. I don't think you go anywhere with a 19, but that's been a characteristic of the Brother School. Take who comes to your doors and try to work with, and it's good. Fred Smith's boy, Richard Smith, graduated from here, and he said one thing he learned here when he's at FedEx, he can converse with the people in the hub. He can converse with people on the board. This being at this school kept him with enough mixture that he can talk to anybody. He is not isolated. I think that's part of our mission, is to make, again, remembering everybody's equal. We're all equal. We do different things, but we're all special before God. Anyone who thinks that they're a little special, a little bit better, they need a lesson in humility.
Brother Joel, I think you've made an essential point. Joe and Mark, I think the Christian brothers have always promoted egalitarian values. Everybody is the same. Everybody is equal. Rich or poor, black or white, they are to be respected.
It makes a difference every day in school. When we don't wear uniforms here, but we wear the necktie and the dress pants and the dress shoes and because you can't tell whether a boy here is wealthy or poor by the way he looks, because they kind of look the same. You take the uniform away from them, and then they start wearing things that are a little bit beyond what they should do. So anything we can do to remind them, we're all in this together.
Right.
We're all in this together. That is the secret. That's the Christian message. That's the Jewish message. It's the Protestant message. That if we can remember that, we're going to be better husbands. We're going to be better single people. We're going to be better religious. We're going to be better ministers, rabbis. As we always remember that we're together in on this thing. We're not separate. You'll be a happier person when you realize you can run with the best of them.
That's right. That's extremely well said, Brother Joel. Larry, you had a point to make too in that, didn't you?
Right, it goes back to, it seems like a theme that I hear you talking about. Keep the boys busy, keep them involved, we're all in this together. One thing Brother Adrian said, I think it was the first day I was on campus. I will never forget this. He said, if you come to this school and all you do is go to class and go home and do your homework and you don't do anything else, you're missing about 80 to 90% of what we have to offer here. And here I'm 53 years old. I had my 35th reunion last year, and I never forgot that. It just struck me, and I think that's one of the most important things about this school, and I think that's why everybody stays together, one of the big reasons, because we all get involved.
Yeah, that's a common thread that I've heard. And one thing that's been evident since we started talking to this is we were not going to get this done in one episode. There's just too much to cover. There's too many memories. And so, Brother Joel, if you wanted to kind of wrap us up a little bit, and then we'll kind of reconvene to this again.
We're working very hard to keep the school going. As I mentioned, we have much more competition, which makes us better. John, when we were here, it was $185 a year. And my dad worked at Gerber's department store, so you know what that meant salary-wise. That was a lot of cash. When it went to $285 when we were seniors, he said, I don't know whether we can make that or not. But he never said anything afterwards. Next year, the tuition will be $14,000 a year. That is a lot of money. And for our Catholic population, that is an awful lot of money. And so we're working. We will give out about $1.7 million in tuition assistance from the endowment started by Brother Adrian and Brother Stephen for the precise purpose to help people. We can't give scholarships. It's against TSSAA rules, and we can't talk about your talent in athletics or music or just your family need it. And we try to give that. We want to keep working towards that. The school is not interested in government money because Again, we believe in a strong public school system. I don't want a penny from the government. If we're going to make it, we have to make it on our own. And some government regulations will go against our own Catholic principles. And so I think if we can keep working to have a strong enrollment, keep the financial assistance going on as much as possible. Our board works very hard to control the tuition. $14,000 is a lot of money. Now, some people say, oh, you're still a good bargain in the city. We must be able to keep the place open to people who want to come here. Because if we become exclusive, I think we will lose part of our charism. Our founder will come and not recognize us. So we want him, if he comes back today, we want him to recognize us as brothers of the Christian schools.
Well, extremely well said. I'm a proud graduate of Central High School, but I am very envious that you guys got to do this because there is nothing but smiles and good memories around the table. As we talked about doing this, I will close with this. We talked about this podcast for quite a while, and we would say that we're going to do this at Christian Brothers, and Brother Joel's going to be there. And to a man, they said, oh my gosh, I love Brother Joel. I can't wait to hear this. So just no better testament, I don't think, to that. Just your longevity and what you've done for these men now that we still call boys. So anyway, this is Mark White, Joe Lowry's here. The end of this podcast. Make sure and listen for future ones. We are definitely going to do another one on Christian Brothers. So thanks. This is Our Memphis History. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode on Christian Brothers High School. As mentioned in the podcast, we will do a part 2 of this. Please follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Check out our website at ourmemphishistory.com. Tell all your friends about the podcast, and thanks for listening.